What's going on, guys? Dan from SSG bringing you another Edison format deck profile. This time I'm profiling my Volcanic Darkworld deck. A little bit of a spicy deck here. Just kind of came up with this idea from a few different inspirations, and it's a fun deck, so I figured I'd bring it to the channel. To start, we have 2 copies of Hamster and 3 Ryko. Just solid engine here. This is kind of like really important, I think, for these like Darkworld or like mid-range style decks, pretty much. Just being able to have a lot of good removal and also set up for Caius is really important. We run for Darkworlds 2 gold, 1 silver, and 1 brow. First shout out to my boy Big Ants for playing pure Darkworlds in Edison format. He's been doing pretty well on these little small 16-man flights. But for our deck specifically, we're only running 4 Darkworlds. We basically want the ones that impact the board more often than just the brow, because that's kind of being, we're trying to be an aggressively leaning mid-range deck with the Ryko Caius package, and these just help you put damage into play as well as enable us to play Deck Devastation Virus, which is very powerful as well. 1 brow just for cycling. We have a lot of ways to draw cards in this deck, so the additional cycler helps a lot, and 4 is a good number. I do like the 4. For the Volcanic package, of course, 3 copies of Volcanic Rocket. Just solid card in mid-range decks, I think. Just +1, auto +1, and it searches a removal card, which is very strong. And also, it's really good for discard fodder. You're going to be able to add back the Blaze Accelerator from grave as well as from deck, and it's just going to give you that +1, which you can easily discard whenever you want for your Darkworld spells that we'll get into later on. Of course, 3 copies of Volcanic Shell as well. Shell is just really strong. I think it's like almost the best Darkworld, you know, because it just auto replaces itself, and it also thins your deck, which is really important. And it just lets you play the discard spells more consistently that pair along with the Darkworld cards, because you're always going to have something in hand, which is very good. And this also gives you more removal with the Blaze Accelerator as well. 2 copies of Caius, as I've been mentioning, just Ryko, Caius, Hamster type of deck. I just want to be a mid-range deck that is a little aggressive, and 2 Caius is the right number for this deck specifically. We then have Morphing Jar, kind of just a nut straw. I like having these I win buttons in mid-range decks. I mean, being able to discard Shell and or a copy 1 or 2 Darkworlds off of this is just kind of nuts. We also play spells and traps that can get some card advantage when we set them and then flip over Jar. So really good. I've had this card be extremely nuts for me in this deck, and it's just it's good to have like an I win button in a mid-range deck like this. So very solid. 1 copy of Plague Spreader, just solid card you can mill or discard. You can bring it back into a threat, which is very good. I like that quite a bit. 1 copy of Spirit Reaper. I've been including this in all of my Ryko Caius decks. Just being able to mix up with Hamster and Ryko is like a really good mix up with Reaper. Also, it kind of goes hand in hand with this deck because we're trying to control their opponent's hand quite a bit. So I think this is just like a perfect fit for this deck specifically. Of course, we have some boss monsters here. 1 copy of Dark Arm Dragon, 1 copy of Chaos Sorcerer. The Chaos Sorcerer and Dark Arm actually can be a little bit inconsistent with our Light and Dark counts, but I think this deck desperately needs win conditions, especially going late game. These cards are going to eventually be live, so I do like having them in the deck. Solid cards that you're just going to... mainly just the Chaos Sorcerer might be a little bit greedy. I think Dad is just auto include because it's such a powerful card. But you just want win conditions in this deck, and you need to be able to have go over the top of the opponents once you have reached like some sort of mid-range game, basically. Onto some spells. We have 3 copies of Darkworld Dealings. This card isn't really the best card you could be playing because your opponent gets to cycle for free, essentially, which is, like, fine, you know. I mean, it's not great, but it just enables your game plan. It gets Shell into your graveyard to start filtering. It gets big monsters into play with Darkworld Dealing, the Darkworld monsters getting out. So I think it's a solid card. It's one of those things that you just have to play if you're playing Darkworlds, I think, and you just have to make the concession. I've seen lists that play Darkworld cards that just don't play this card, and I understand why, but I think it's a solid card. It's really important for enabling the strategy, and also, come on, it's just a sick ultimate. I mean, I had to pick up the ultis when I had the chance. They're really awesome. Then, really important card of the deck, 3 copies of Drag Down to the Grave. This is actually the main inspiration for this deck, because I've been looking for a deck for a while that could play Ryko, Caius, and Drag Down. I think being able to have hand control and hand disruption is really strong in mid-range decks, sort of like taking a page out of Magic's book, where you get to play Thoughtseize in your mid-range style decks. And this isn't quite Thoughtseize. There's quite some downsides with this card that come along with this card, but being able to look and take the best card out of your opponent's hand is very powerful, whether it be a Miracle Fusion, a Live Gores, something along those lines. I think this card's really good, and if you can replace the card that you're discarding, it's totally fine. Like, it's actually an excellent card, and I think it could be played in a few different decks, and people don't really... people kind of sleep on this card. I think this card is quite powerful when you can get it to work, because it takes so much to get it to work. But this is a great card with the Volcanic Shell, as well as the Dark Worlds, of course, and still draws everyone a card. So, solid card. I do like Drag Down. Another I Win, just card destruction, really powerful. You can really get between the Drag Downs and the Dark World dealings. You can really set this card up to be really powerful on turn 1, as well as Morphing Jar. Really powerful card that can just win games. You have the 1 Blaze Accelerator. You're going to be searching this thing a lot and discarding it a lot. But also in a mid-range deck, this card is excellent. You're just going to be able to pop cards and keep the removal train going. But I mean, this card's actually broken. I mean, it's not once per turn. It's, the discard is free, essentially. And it's also free to add to your hand off of a Stratos. So I think this card's really powerful, and I think the Volcanic Engine's kind of underplayed. This card's really good. 1 copy of Avarice, just late game Avarice. I would like to fit 2 in the deck, but just 1 is fine. Just you don't really need to multiple go off with your shells, but if it happens, it happens. Solid card that you're going to draw in the late game. 1 copy of Heavy Storm, pretty staple there. Onto the trap cards. 2D Prison, really important to protect your Dark World monsters. A lot of the threshold of this format is a lot of the times 2,400, and your Dark World monsters are 23, which is not the best look. This card just helps protect them, as well as Mirror Force, just kind of staple in Dark Worlds in my opinion. We then have 1 Torrential Tribute, pretty staple as well. I like to play 1 Regeki Break to discard that Volcanic Shell. Of course, doesn't work with Dark Worlds, but flexible removal that you can discard Shell or the Blazed Accelerator for. I like this one quite a bit as a 1-of. Solemn Judgment and Starlight Road, just to protect your back rows as well as protect your Blazed Accelerator. Solid cards, going to do work for us. Would not be an SSG deck profile without the 1 copy of Trap Dust Shoot, of course. We're really trying to control the hand in this deck with Drag Down. Trap Dust Shoot just going to be awesome for us. We're going to open it and outskill our opponent. As many of you may know, this card is kind of busted and it's just broken. Let's just open it turn 1, please, and early and often. And of course, we're going to add Mind Crush to this deck, because along with Trap Dust Shoot, we're looking at our opponent's hand with Drag Down. So Mind Crush will kind of be the nuts, and really strong card. It's a 41 card main deck, but let me know what you would cut, because I've been kind of like struggling with that myself. Quick extra deck rundown before we get into the side. Armory Arm, Catastor, Android, Bryonic, Goyo, Urquazas, Black Rose. We have Herbellum. I like the hand control aspect of this card, and you can make it pretty easily in this deck with Plague Spitter and a Dark World. 2 Stardust Dragon, the 1 Colossal Dark End, of course, Thought Ruler. We have Mistworm and the Chimera Tech for the Cyber Dragons and the sideboard. Onto the sideboard, 2 copies of Cyber Dragon. I like this card. I think you need more threats in this deck post-board, and this card gets it done for you, as well as making Chimera Tech. We have 2 copies of Vanity's Fiend. These can just be swapped out for the Caiuses in some cases, because when you flip up Ryko, sack it, it's good. But I'm also running Soul Exchange on the side. 1 Snowman Eater and 1 Night Assailant. I actually like Night Assailant. I like this split a lot because you have Snowman, just an excellent flip card, but this is kind of a pseudo Snowman. It will still answer the problems, but it won't live a lot of the time. However, this does add back things when you get to discard it. So being able to, pick back a Ryko up when you're discarding this off of a Dark World dealing is actually a pretty big deal, and I think that it kind of ekes out the second Snowman slot in the sideboard. I would like to main this card, but I didn't have room for it, so 1-on-1 split I think is pretty neat, and I always like to play Night Assailant, one of my favorite OG cards. 2 copies of Soul Exchange. These can come in if you want to keep the Kaias in, as well as the Vanity's Fiends coming in. Really powerful play is sacking your opponent's monster with Vanity's Fiend. Just really powerful thing you can do in the format. 1 MST in the side. Onto the traps. 2 Deck Devi, just really powerful card. Everyone knows it's kind of like one of the boogeymen of this format. Just really annoyingly powerful card, and this deck can enable it, so we are going to run it with the Tribute our Darkworld monsters and our Kaias for it. 2 bottomless, just for decks we want more removal. We play a lot of cycling cards that take up a lot of slots in our deck, so we don't need as many traps as we will just find the ones we're looking for. So no bottomless in the main, but we will side it as just more removal. It's a solid card, of course. And then we have 2 copies of Dust Tornado. Just solid. We want to get rid of the Black Whirlwind if we can, so that is about it, guys. Let me know what you guys thought about the deck in the comments section below. Let me know what you cut from the main board, and let me know what you thought about this idea. I think I just trying to look for fun new ideas to play in this format, and this is just one I came up with. I think it's a really powerful deck when you can. I think the 2 engines are really powerful when they can really get going. That's this at the end of the day, this is kind of like a mid-range deck that doesn't have too much insane power, but there are some hands where you actually just go off on the opponent with card destruction and Morphing Jar. So there's a lot of cool things you can do in this deck, and it's just at the end of the day a Raikou Kai's deck. It's never going to be horrendously horrible, but that is about it, guys. So let me know what you guys thought about the deck. I think it's a fun one, and definitely go play it at your locals or just online or something. It's a fun deck and can get you some wins here and there. Without further ado, this is Dan V from SSG, signing out.